Well, it's so good to see you again. Hope you happy belated New Year, I guess, since we haven't spoken since
Yeah.
November.
I
Happy
know.
belated Chinese New Year also.
Happy New Year. Happy International Women's Day.
Yes,
Women's
International
Month.
Women's Day.
Happy Black History Month. Happy anything. I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of things.
Well, we got Persian New Year coming up in a few weeks, so
there you go.
Congratulations.
Happy early Persian New Year.
Yeah, so we're all covered then. Well, first, starting out, I wanted to just get into a little bit of Armageddon now that it has aired. It's out there in the world. I love how we went really back to Eobard Thawne, really, instantly, which is it's interesting because we usually, like, after he leaves Edison and we don't see him for a while. So what was it that was important about making sure that he was the driving force of this graphic novel?
Well, it was funny. We had to hide the fact that he was in Armageddon. We had to do that because we knew in episode 1, it's like, well, we know where we're driving to. We know at the end of 3, he's going to be at the wedding and there's going to be this big surprise. So we had to make sure with Despero, we were really kind of almost misdirecting the audience and saying, oh, no, this is your sole villain. He's the sole bad guy, because Reverse Flash is such an integral part of season 8 as a whole, even though he's only kind of, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that he's sprinkled out in very mysterious ways. I would say keep an eye out for him in ways you may not be expecting. But it was all part of just the plan, because I mean, the Batman has Joker, Superman has Lex Luthor, the Flash has the Reverse Flash. So you have to honor that if we're trying to tell this season the ultimate Flash story, especially in graphic novels. We have we have 3 this year, by the way. That's new. We have one at the top, one in the middle, and one in the end, and they are bookend in such a way that we're telling a very big Reverse Flash story. Very big.
Oh, well, that is very exciting. I love to hear that. And another thing that we loved to see in Armageddon, both Batwoman and Flash fans, was the friendship between Iris and Ryan. And also the fact that the Flash got to showcase a bit of Canon Wildmore before Batwoman did, which everyone went wild over. We've heard Javicia's side of the story of how it came to be, but for you, what was it like clearing that on your end? And is there any chance to get those building blocks of Batwoman meeting the Flash kids in our universe?
Well, I love Javicia and I love Batwoman. Let's just say that flat out. I was the most excited person to get her on our show. So when we were putting it together, and I think I've said this before in other interviews, when we decided which people we needed to be our guest stars on Armageddon, there was no way it could be done in the way I wanted to do it without Batwoman and without Cress and without Ray Palmer and without Kat playing Green Arrow. I mean, it was very specific, the story that we were telling in regards to Batwoman. I just wanted to see 2 Black women on screen who were best friends. I mean, it's just that simple, right? I think that's a powerful image. Just doing normal things. Oh, we're at the wedding reception. Okay, yes, villains attack, but let's throw that out. We're a comic book show, right? But before that happens, but by the way, I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to do it, but there is so much more to that opening scene at the party before the attack happens. We only have 42 minutes, but in fact, that's a huge spoiler. I can't say that. How can I get around that? Let's just say that Caitlin starts to date. She says she's going to start to date in 801. Well, it's the future, 10 years later. You get to see how it has gone, and we didn't get to show it in the opening sequence of 804, and it broke my heart. It's on the cutting room floor. And there were more lines with all of the Team Flash cast members, and with our guest stars too. I think there's another couple of lines from Kyler Lee, and they're kind of interacting. And it's just part of the realities of making things. But anyways, I digress. Getting her onto the show, I made the story. I came up with the story first. I said, these are the people that we need. All right, let me call up Caroline over at Batwoman. And you start to sweat, right? And I've known Caroline for years, and love her to death, think she's awesome. But still, you're thinking in the back of your mind, what if she says no, or what if it's scheduling conflict doesn't work out? And I pitched her what my plan was, and I said, well, I'd like her to be the maid of honor of Iris. I'd like the two women to be best friends. I think we need to see that. I got about like 1 minute into my pitch, and she's like, yes, 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 that's all done. It's all fantastic. You need to do more of that.
Yes.
Like, yes,
We love that.
You know, she was all behind it, and I was very happy about that. And then I said, well, what do you think if, you know, and we talked about the maid of honor thing. Can I mention maybe that, you know, Batwoman, Ryan and Sophie, you know, and she's like, oh no, embrace that, Eric. Embrace it all, because we're going to write towards what you're setting up on Flash.
Oh, I love it.
And I went, oh, that sounds terrific. And she had a funny pitch. She said, hey, have Javicia give a funny toast at the party. This is all stuff that obviously ended up on the cutting room floor, but it was incredibly wonderful. And once we did that, I said, well, you know, do you mind if I just call Javicia personally and just kind of invite her personally? I want to make sure that she feels welcome. And she's like, no worries. I'll let her know you're calling. And then I talked to Javicia, and who's just the most delightful person in the world. And she, in fact, after our conversation, in our second conversation, I think after I'd kind of pitched the story to her, she said, Eric, whatever you need, put me in even more scenes. I'll do it all. And another thing that we lost, I'm so sad to say, is scheduling conflicts got in the way because of COVID. She was actually supposed to be in the Act 5 fight of that 804 fight with Damien Dark. And we had all these cool Batarang toys and bat moves that she did. And it just broke my heart because we only had her for a couple of days to shoot, and we couldn't do it. So I did what we always do on our show, which is I just put it in a file, because I'm like,
okay, I'll bring it back.
You need to come back to our show. We had way too much fun. And we have this really cool moment where she does this really cool action thing that I'm not going to tell you, because I want to show it to the audience. Hopefully next year, knock on plastic.
Yes,
you know,
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed if we can get another season, because she's just amazing. And she was just a delight to work with. The cast just fell in love with her. The director, Chad Lowe, fell in love. Everybody just had a great time. So there you go.
Thank you.
I spoke to her in December, and I said, you know, I mean, listen, you're gonna come back, right? You know, we need to see that. So she was like, she was filming, I think, the finale, and like, so I was like, okay, I understand. Rest up, girl. I totally get it. But speaking of, you know, again, for people watching this later, we will try not to about season 9, but I'm sure, you know, Eric is like a vault. We sometimes you get in, sometimes you don't. But if after seeing the reception for Armageddon, you know, if there's a 9th season, like, what are the chances we might see another graphic novel in this kind of scope where we do see other characters come from the other shows? Again, not because we try to not use the crossover word at all while we were covering this. So are there good chances of seeing this again now that you've seen kind of like how people responded to it?
Yeah, I was very happy that people seem to respond very favorably to it. And, you know, again, knock on whatever imaginary object we should be knocking on. If we are lucky enough to get a season 9, you know, I do have a crazy idea that I would love to do as a nice big kickoff to the season with some guest stars. But, you know, I don't want to get my hopes up yet. You know, I like the rest of you all are still waiting for a pickup too, but I know how these things work from a more practical level. If we are lucky enough to get that pickup, then very quickly I'm going to be asked, hey, so what's the story next year? I can't wait. I can't wait that long. I need to have a plan in place now. So that's kind of been my job over the last couple of months or so. But yeah, I would like to have, you know, the people who were on the show before in Armageddon, but there's also some new folks. I won't spoil it, but one of the people I'm actually having a conversation with, I believe in 2 weeks, a Supergirl alum. I'll give you that much. Who has never been on our show before. And I'm going to try and get that individual. Notice I did not use any pronouns. I'm going to try and get that individual onto our show in some way, because I love the character so much. But, you know, one step at a time. One step at a time.
I hope that you do manage it. I hope we get to see it. And speaking more generally, like Despero was one of the more obvious examples of you taking a villain who is one way in the comics and putting your own spin on it, very different from what we would have expected when we first heard Despero. So what is your process when it comes to plucking out either villains or just comic book characters that you're going to introduce to the show? How do you decide who gets in, and how do you decide what leaves them and gets replaced with something else?
Right. Well, the first thing you do is you have to balance one of two things. One, what villain am I a fan of as a comic book fan? I'm a huge Justice League of America fanatic. And my favorite two Justice League villains, among many of them, Felix Faust and all the wonderful people, but they're Amazo and Despero. Those are my two all-time favorites. So I managed to talk Todd in season 5 into doing Amazo. He's like, who? I said, he steals the powers. It's really great. We're gonna do this thing.
Oh my God.
That was very, very.
So we have
funny,
we have you to thank for him in Elseworlds.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Todd just kind of went, okay, I need a villain that's not, just do your thing. And me and Sam was my co-writer on that episode. So me and Sam, who's a fellow really super comic geeky guy, we're like, we just got the keys to the kingdom. Let's do this. But I, in the back of my mind, have had Despero sitting there waiting for the right moment. So that's one. The other thing is you look at the story that's being told emotionally. And in this case, it's a season of leveling up. The Flash is leveled up. I have to have a villain. The villains had to level up too. They had to be way more powerful than anybody the Flash had faced before. That meant somebody who was alien right there. So looking for an alien, loving Despero, now it starts to come together, right? And it's this big epiphanous moment where you're like, okay, well, how would this work? Now we can't have him be a big purple guy with a fin all the time. As much as I would love that, one, we just simply can't afford it. It's not financially feasible. I'm just talking about the realities of it. But also, we've hired such an incredible actor in Tony Curran. I want to see Tony's face. I want to see Tony emoting in scenes with Grant. One of the things that Grant said to me very early on in one of their first scenes together in 801 was, oh my goodness, working with this actor is such a privilege. He's so talented and so amazing. And even when I saw the dailies coming back from 801, we actually were going to have more of the the purple fin version of Despero, whatever we could afford, in episode 802. But I realized it would almost be a mistake to put that kind of facade in between the characters' emotions and the audience. So I actually dialed it back, and the ethos became, all right, when we go to a big 12-foot or 8-foot purple guy, it needs to be for a reason, and it needs to be justified by story. So that's why you kind of see him in very specific moments as the digital version versus very specific moments as the human version. Example, 804, right? Where he's torturing Cecile. He's just killed all of Team Flash. I felt that would be more emotionally powerful in his human form because of the nature of human beings and our capacity for bad things. It's violence. Thank you. It would have been too easy to see an 8-foot purple guy do that. I don't think it would have landed the same way. Conversely, when Flash comes in and he accuses him and he says, look, I've done these things. I've changed time. I've stopped Armageddon. I'm the badass hero. Now the villain needs to level up, show his true self so he could say, I don't care. I'm still more powerful than you are. Let me go check it out. And if not, I'll be back, because obviously we knew it was only part 4. We knew he had to come back in part 5. So again, there's always a method to the madness on these things.
Absolutely.
Well, one last thing I want to ask about Armageddon before we get into this back half of the season is something we on the podcast have talked about for years is, that origin story of Eobard Thawne, the history between him and Barry in the future. And you guys finally touched upon it in a very big way in Armageddon. So what are chances, because you said that Eobard is sprinkled out throughout the season, what are chances we might actually finally visit maybe his time period and actually see that those days fold out to become the greatest villain that we know as Reverse Flash?
Well, it's funny. It was one of the things I specifically wanted to do in Armageddon, and one of the things I specifically wanted to do this season, in case it's our last, is I have to provide the origin story. The audience needs to know this. I, as a fan, I need to know this, right? So we got the story in 805, which is one of my favorite scenes in Armageddon, that Caitlin, Tom Cavanaugh scene. As far as going to the 23rd century and actually seeing it, obviously, as you might imagine, it's something that I'd love to do. It's a wee bit cost prohibitive. I'm not gonna lie. I think honesty is the best.
We need a GoFundMe so that it can happen.
That would be a reason for perhaps a season 9, maybe, you know. Yeah, there's only so much we can do as far as that's why we go to 2049. It's not too far removed. It's the future, but there's not people in hover cars flying by. It's not Minority Report, obviously, but I'll be honest with you. Yes, I'd love to see that origin story like played out and revisited. I just don't know if it's possible or when or if we can get to it.
Fair enough.
Well, one day.
We can hope, though. We can hope.
Yeah, exactly. So we've seen a little bit now of Iris as Allegra's mentor. Yes. At the Citizen, which was something that many fans were hoping Iris would be like on the receiving end of in the early seasons. So it's nice to now see her be the mentor. But as we move forward with Allegra now kind of as like the up and coming journalist, and Iris is more of like the media mogul, if you will, how will we incorporate her as like an active investigative participant throughout the season?
Are we talking about Iris or
Iris?
Allegra?
Iris, yes. Or Iris and Allegra as a team, but Iris getting to do the journalism side of things.
Well, there's a couple of answers to that question. Number one, Iris she might be a media mogul, but she got a big problem to deal with. As I recall, she's suffering from time sickness. Do you think that might distract from her duties as an investigative reporter? I think that's a pretty safe bet. Now, having said that, one of the episodes I'm most excited about, it's kind of we have 3 graphic novels this season, right? We have Armageddon, the middle one, and the finale one. In the middle one, Iris is going on a very cool investigation. I'm happy to report. I'm very excited about it, where we get to see her in cool reporter mode. And it's kind of a new twist on the Team Citizen concept. I won't tell you because I don't want to spoil the guest star surprise, but it's a little bit different, but it's pretty fun. But her investigative story will start to collide with her comic book story, which is, how is this time sickness affecting me? Because that's a big thing we have to resolve and deal with over the course of the back half of season 8. So you'll see Iris on and Candace has been loving it. She's been loving just performing some of these scenes. She's like, I'm just a reporter today. This is really amazing. And I'm literally on a case. How great is this? And obviously that case, then it has to connect with the comic bookness, but not at first. We actually get some reporter things, it's quite nice. Now, conversely, on Allegra's side, if we are starting with Iris's kind of time sickness, but kind of segueing to investigating and then going back to time sickness, we're doing the opposite with Allegra. We already saw her level up in 714, right, last year. So we know when she, in certain instances, she can go Nova. Well, how does she level up in her job, which is what we started in 801. So you'll see the kind of opposite with her. You'll see her leveling up as a reporter. Then you'll see the comic book stuff kind of in the middle. But the episodes we're filming now, which are the last 4 of the season, we're really seeing how being a reporter collides with her being a hero. And it's created some really intense emotional stuff for the character of Allegra Garcia. It was very exciting. On the other hand, though, in addition to that, we did see Allegra and Chester kiss in the future.
We did.
I wonder how that's gonna play out.
It's taking words right out of my mouth.
Yes. We can't just drop
Allegra's
that.
journey.
Yeah, Allegra's real.
Yes. Get ready for a little bit more of that. I say it's a slow burning journey, but they go through some really intense things, I think, this year that are going to bring them closer together than ever.
Are any of those intense things D&D campaigns gone wrong that we can witness? Because that would be great, I think.
Without giving a spoiler, a huge spoiler away. I will say you might even actually see a D&D game on our show this season.
Oh, that's the
for
best
real?
news I've ever heard.
I would love that. Because
I'm just saying.
I love what you're saying. I love what you were saying about Iris's, reporter artist. I mean, also, I just love the fact that maybe I'm just being selfish here, but you made her also a podcaster, Citizentopia. I'm like, I love that. Love the logo. I love that the set you guys built for it. I know there were some fans that were curious, like, what are the chances maybe? Because we've seen when Lois Lane interviews Superman. What if Flash? I don't know how Barry would do on the podcast. I don't know, but what a chance we could see maybe Iris interview the Flash.
That's actually something we talked about, and we ended up going a different direction because the kind of the story that was being told through Iris, and it's her investigating, this kind of journey that she goes on in the middle of the season. It didn't quite lend it to that scene, but we do see more of her Citizentopia podcasting towards the end of the season. It actually plays a very emotional role in a very special episode right in the middle of the season. I won't tell you why, but I will say look for it because I just watched the cut yesterday, and after I stopped weeping so much because it was making me cry, because it was such great performances, especially by Candace and some of the other people who were in the scene. And I've said it many times, I'm just lucky to be on a show with a cast this brilliant. Grant is so fantastic. Danielle, Candace, Kayla, Jesse, Brandon, Danny Nicolay. I mean, I have 7 of the most wonderful actors that I could possibly ask for in this little toolbox that we have as writers and as a writing staff. So it's very common for them to make me cry when I'm watching the cut. Very, very common. It happens probably about every second or third episode because we're that kind of show. We're very emotional.
Oh no! I mean, I've noticed it for 8 years. Run out of a lot of tissues. I know because I want to focus on something that's coming up for you because you're directing this season finally, and I believe that this is your first time directing since your Teen Wolf days, right?
Yeah. I had done a lot in reality television years earlier. Then I'd done a Teen Wolf, and running a show keeps you busy, right? And it's funny, the cast, especially like Danny Nicolay, kept saying, "When are you going to direct one of our shows? When are you going to do this? Why is it happening now? It's season 7. You've got the show running thing down. What are you wasting time for?" And I'm like, it's a little intense it's like a global pandemic, It's like I got a little stuff on my mind, But I'm happy to report that we actually got now. Danny Nicolay can stop yelling at me. We finally did it. We all had a blast. We just had a really great time, and I got the weird episode. I don't know if that's coincidence or not, but maybe it's serendipitous because I have very weird kind of tastes in a lot of the stuff that I like to do and like the media that I like to consume. I have seen way too many David Lynch movies, obviously. When you watch something like Last Temptation of Barry Allen Part 1, you're basically looking in my brain at that point. So yeah, I got the weird one. And I was supposed to direct the super emo one, the one that I was crying when I was watching the cut yesterday, right? But I think it worked out perfectly because we were able to explore Iris's time sickness. It's a big Iris time sickness episode. I was very happy about that. Grant's performance, he just maybe he was doing me a solid. I don't know, but he's just fantastic in the episode.
He went super hard just for you.
I don't know. I'm not I'm like a megalomaniac. I'm not a dictator. I'm pretty much the same as I am here. I'm pretty excited, and I'm definitely passionate when it comes to directing. It's not a subtle thing. If the take isn't working, I'll be. It's just not working. It's not inner monologue. It's outer monologue at that point, right? Which might be a little inappropriate, but then I will dive in, and I want to work as a collaborator with my actors, with my camera people, with costumes, and all the department heads to create something kind of special. So I don't know if it's special, but it's definitely weird, and I hope people enjoy it because it's the trippy episode. That's what it's being called around here now, the trippy episode.
Can you say what number it is, or is that a spoiler?
Yeah, that's 8:15. 8:15.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's near the end.
It's near the end. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
cool. Very cool.
that makes sense because almost every episode 15 of every season of the show has always been like it's either like the King Sharks or the Gorilla Grodd or whatnot, or it will be Enter Flash
true.
time. So it's it's very very fitting, I will say. So
I had not noticed that. That's interesting. All right.
Now you gotta do it on purpose.
Yes.
Now, Jessica has mentioned finding out about Nora's life and future world that she comes from script by script. But for you, how much of the Knot Twins, the Tornado Knot Twins, do you have mapped out in your mind? Like what do you know about their relationship with Barry, for example, etc., versus how much just comes from inspiration?
I have like a 2 or 3 year plan for those characters. That's ridiculously detailed, ridiculously so. He talks about, I guess it's in 717, where he talks about being a freshman in college. It's like we have ideas specifically like, okay, this is the college he goes to. This is what he studies. This is if we were to have an adventure, because when we were building 806 as a episode, at first we were thinking, well, maybe we go to the future and it's a college adventure that they kind of get involved in. And that ended up being a little cost prohibitive, obviously. And I think those things happen for a reason. I think it ended up the right story in the right place at the right time. And going back to the past, I don't but yeah, I think it ended up being the right thing at the right time, because it allowed us, by going back to our show's past, to explore, what happens when the Flash is the Flash, but he's not the Flash yet because he's in a coma for 9 months. Aren't all those villains still out and about doing things? And so it made us go, well, who was stopping all the bad people at that point? Who was fighting crime? The kids were. Okay. All right. And you kind of stumble into these things. But yeah, one of the things I'm most excited about is seeing more, and you get a little hint of that in 815, the one because I just finished it last week. So I'm looking at the cut now. There are many more hints to Nora's future and really what she's doing now as a character in 2049 that are very different, from what we've seen so far. So I'm very excited to share that with the audience. And I know Jessica was very excited. By the way, Jessica's a dream to work with. All of our cast is. And Jordan Fisher, I've said many times too, Bart and Nora are just the best. And we love having them on the show whenever they can make it.
Absolutely.
Well, I spoke to Jessica yesterday, and one of the things that I asked her about was, because I know Flash has been huge for its diversity and inclusion for Black characters, also people of color in general. But one thing we haven't really seen a lot explored of is LGBT representation. And as a bisexual man myself, and knowing that Nora is a lesbian, can you talk about maybe at some point? I don't know what her arc is going to look like in the back of the season, or if there's a season 9, but will we start to see that kind of relationship, with her having a girlfriend, or at least touching upon it? Because I think a lot of viewers are waiting for that.
You're gonna like 815. It's a small part of it, but I too wanted to re-acknowledge that this is a lesbian character. That was very important to me, because that's part of. I'm not saying she's defined by it. I don't mean it that way, but it's like, didn't we mention that back in season 5, and haven't we kind of ignored it for 3 years? We're not gonna ignore that anymore. So I look for a little Easter egg on the exact thing you're talking about in 815 that made us all howl with laughter, by the way, on set, and we loved it. We're like, that's going in the movie.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving us a little taste.
Yes, that is very exciting. Now, another thing that we've talked a lot about for this season is leveling up, right? As Barry is constantly in the process of becoming the dude that gets a whole museum based on his legacy. So what are some important steps he's taking this season, or in what way are you paving the path for him to reach that legacy this season?
Well, that's the season theme this year. Everybody's leveling up in different ways, and that could be leveling up power-wise or emotionally. So for Barry, it's a little bit of both. We saw in Armageddon the physical part of leveling up. Okay, I'm in 802, and I'm going to release this huge wild discharge to knock somebody out. We've never seen anything like that before. So we know where he is leveling up power-wise and how that will kind of work. And obviously there's more of that throughout this season. But how does he level up emotionally? And you have to do that as a team leader by leading the team through situations they've never been through before. You've got to level up emotionally. And that's what the whole middle graphic novel of this season is all about. It's about how does he level up as a leader in guiding the team through some really tough emotional times. In fact, I mean, it's literally again, the episode that had me crying yesterday. It's one of the things that the scene is actually about. Him turning to Iris, because it's a great Barry Iris moment in this particular episode. And he turns to her and he says, based on what's going on right now in this middle of this graphic novel, how do I even tell these people we still have to do our jobs? You know? And she says, I don't know, but I love you, I support you, and you'll find a way. Right? And then cue me going, yes, they'll find a way. They love each other. Right? It's pretty amusing to watch me watching it.
I'm just visualizing like you and Kevin Smith both weeping over Flash episodes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I need you to in a room now together just to watch Flash episodes.
Yes. Kevin, we love Kevin. We love Kevin. He's just a great dude. If he's watching, hey, Kevin, I haven't seen him since that Crisis special that we did a couple years ago. You know what I mean? But it was just great to chat with him. He's such a great dude. Such a great dude.
Well, I know you touched upon like that. There's that huge moment between Barry and Iris coming up, but I know there's been talk. You discussed before about the time thing is really being a huge challenge and something that's going to put them through a lot of interesting situations. But and I'm asking, the fans want to know, so I'm here to represent them and ask,
sure,
what amidst all this chaos that will go on, can we still expect to see, just regular happy moments for this married couple? Like, I don't know, like them going to the movies or just having date night without any interruptions. Sorry, Ray Palmer, I'm just saying. What can you think about that?
It's funny. There's a hint of that it's the very first episode of the middle graphic novel. I don't want to give away numbers because it's the way we get into it is a little surprising this year. It's one of the things I like about the middle graphic novel is it doesn't feel so definitive. I wanted to introduce the big bad for the middle of the season in a slower burn way, I guess you'd call it. So I don't want to spoil that, but that episode starts with just Barry and Iris at home, right? Just starts with them at home, and it's a normal day, and then of course it's a comic book show, and something kind of happens that interrupts the fun. You know what I mean? But you do get a little bit of that. But our stories tend to burn so hot because they're more serialized than they ever used to be. When we were more episodic, we were able to show more of the kind of the day-to-day things. But again, I already gave you one spoiler. I'm just saying there might be a little D&D playing this season.
I'm so excited
still for that.
And that's the kind of thing that can only happen when there's no drama going on, when they're just having fun. So, and in fact, I would dare say that might be being filmed as we speak. But you never heard that from me. You never heard that from me.
No worries.
No, just to like continue to just like bombard you with different versions of the same question. I'm so sorry. The Flash, understandably for pandemic reasons, has been light on the love language of touch recently. So do we know, as our friends over at Batwoman have overcome that hurdle recently, will West Allen still be in their pushing daisies phase this season, or may there be a little bit more less than 6 feet apartness between them?
That was brilliantly hilarious, by the way. Thank you for that. That was funny. That was funny. I like that. I'd say closer, but not all the way, right? Because it just is what it is. Although the episode where I was weeping, right? There's this moment where they're sitting there and they're doing these things and they're holding hands and they have this togetherness, and I got weepy at that part too. You know what I mean? Because they're all hugging each other and they're all doing these things. It was really delightful. It was really delightful. And in a moment like, again, the scene that may or may not be filming as we speak, there's a lot of happiness going on in there too, in a moment like that. So I think you will see a little bit more of that, but I don't want to mislead you because we are still in COVID, and Iris still does have time sickness.
Oh, that's true. Wouldn't want Barry to catch it.
Wouldn't want Barry to catch it. So
we don't need both of them to get shot.
Yeah, we gotta be careful. We gotta be careful. Yeah.
Thank you for humoring us.
Of course. Yeah. No, we ask the same questions, by the way. We're like, when can they just full on? Well, all right. So there's just too many practicalities that we're still over. Now it's getting better. It's getting better, but the world's in charge in a lot of this area. I'm not in charge in this area. So I got to keep everybody safe. That's one of my jobs.
Well, I know we need to wrap soon. So one of my final questions, we know the Earth Prime Arrowverse crossover comic is coming, but we haven't heard anything about the Flash issue specifically. And if this has to be taken out, we can. But can you talk anything about that particular issue? Maybe we don't know who's writing it, and what tease can you give?
Right. To be honest with you, I don't know too much about it. To be honest with you, I know who's writing our kind of story and kind of what the basics are, but I actually have been so busy doing the TV show, I assigned it to two of the writers who are on staff. And once they kind of pitched me the Uber story, I said, run with it at that point. So I'm actually looking forward to that being a pleasant surprise, quite frankly. So I really don't know a lot about that.
Okay, fair enough.
As we go into season 8B, do you have any comic book runs or authors or just events in the comic book world that you would say is recommended reading if someone wanted to prepare themselves?
Without spoilers?
Without spoilers, right? Just things that inspiration has been grabbed from.
That's tricky. It's funny. After Armageddon, which was the most, I think, comic, because we took an actual premise from the Armageddon storyline, even though we twisted it completely. The bare bones of the Armageddon story are the same. Only in that case it was which hero of Earth is going to destroy the planet and bring about Armageddon and all that stuff. And we knew we couldn't have the entire Justice League. We just had the Flash. So we said, okay, it's somebody coming back from the future saying it's going to be you, Flash. So it is inspired definitely by that. But that's really, I would say, the biggest comic book influence storyline this season. If anything, I would say the remaining graphic novels of this season find their inspiration in either season 1 of The Flash. We're going to look back to the past because I think if someone has time sickness, it just kind of lends itself that way. It's kind of obvious. Or they're spun off of just where the show has kind of been going over the last few years, especially seasons 6 and 7. So that's, I would say you don't need to really dig in too deeply to anything.
Rewatch the show.
Yeah, but I mean the comics are great, so please support the Flash comic books too, 'cause I think they're important also. I mean, the way that we look at Godspeed would never have happened if it wasn't for Joshua's run on the comic book of the Flash. It's very much we took his great writing as our inspiration and then kind of ran with it. So I do think the comic books are an important and continue to be an important part of the history of the Flash and how it relates to our show.
Well, I know you gotta go. So as we wrap this up, I know we've asked you a lot. You're giving us a lot of great insight into what's coming up. But is anything that we haven't added that you would love to bring up? As for people watching this at home after the mid-season premiere, which is phenomenal. Which again, putting it out there, give me that spin-off, Eric. I will pay you. I will do whatever I have to get a spin-off. But what is there anything you would like to share with our viewers as we get ready for the next half of the season?
Yeah, I would say that every single thing you saw in Armageddon was there for a reason. And the seeds of a lot of those stories are now going to blossom. And those are the stories that become the graphic novels that you're going to see later on in the season. Everything has a purpose. It's not a coincidence that Caitlin says she's going on a date in 801. You're seeing a glimpse into her journey that's going to happen for the rest of the season. It is definitely not a coincidence that Allegra gets new responsibilities and is taking over CCC Media. That's all part of the plan of the season. it is not at all a coincidence that Iris's time sickness seems to have disappeared for a little bit. And then a comb disappears. I know that's a spoiler for 806, but that's a prelude. We're literally giving you the signals that this is all coming to a head at the end of season 8. And I'll tell you something else. This is I was talking to the staff about this. And again, if we're lucky enough to get a season 9, knock on plastic table here. Really, these 3 seasons, 6, 7, and 8, were all part of one big master plan. And it's all everything you've seen along the way has been leading towards the finale of season 8. Everything has been deliberate. There were a couple, COVID threw us a couple, curveballs here, but in general, we're pretty much sticking to what I originally planned for the 3 seasons that I hoped we would have. And if that is allowed to come to fruition, and we are allowed to go on to a season 9, a new plan will then start. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm looking at, okay, every single character is going to kind of come to a specific place at the end of season 8 that we've kind of hinted at already. What would be next for them, but also how can we wrap it up in a satisfying way at the end of season 8? Because I don't know if I'm doing a series finale or a season finale. I don't know. And I'm just like y'all. I don't know when I will know. So I have to kind of think in terms of 2 things. And I think it's why we're doing so many crazy things this year in that last graphic novel. Just in case these are the final Flash stories we ever get to tell, there's certain things we just have to do. Not to be negative or depressing. I hope there is more. I
don't want to jinx it. I would say if the Flash was going, who's staying would be what I say. I'd be like, no more channel, I guess. But yes, I understand what you were saying.
yeah. And I'm cautiously optimistic. I think like we all are, as we all read, Grant has agreed to, if there is a 9th season, he will be a part of it. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. Let's see what happens from here. But right now, I want to just focus on telling a satisfying conclusion to this 3-year tale, which will become even more obvious. It's another reason why in season 8, something you should look for is more nods to the past, right? We're dealing with a time sickness story. So you will see some people from the past, as we saw in 806, coming back, right? That allows us to reflect upon the journey that we've all been on together for 8 seasons, and hopefully for you guys it'll be a satisfying one.
Well, thank you, Eric. And hope whether there's a 9th season or if this is the end, hopefully we can check in with you at the end of the season, and we'll burn you with more questions and thoughts. But thank you. We're looking forward to seeing what you guys have planned. Whenever that episode ends, when you're weeping, I'm sure I will be weeping with you. So.
Yes. But thanks as always for your guys' support. Really appreciate it. You guys do a marvelous job of just, and I love it sometimes when it's something happens on the show that you don't like. You know what I mean? That you disagree with. I so respect that. I have no problems. No. I'm serious. I have no problems at all. You know what I mean? Everybody has their own opinions. Keep up the good work. It's really appreciated.
No, thank you so much. You as well.
Best of luck, and we will chat soon. Hopefully.
You got it. Take care, folks.
Take care.
Farewell.